what is your best youth sports moment?
Oh, I my best, like me personally. Okay, um, that was when I was growing up. I played mainly three sports. I played baseball, basketball, and tennis, of course. So and then it became I kind of dropped baseball and it was basketball and tennis. Obviously, I'm a very very tall guy, so bad, and I grew up in North Carolina, so basketball was an obvious choice for me as well. But I remember I must have been 12 or 13 years old. I won a tennis tournament on the weekend. Must have been Saturday or Sunday, and then that same day I played a basketball game later that afternoon, and I scored like 26 points or something like that in a 12 and under like AAU game. So that was something I was very proud of. But for sure, for me growing up, my life revolved around sports. I mean, I was playing tennis, baseball, basketball whenever I possibly could because I had limitless energy back then. I wish I had that energy right now, but it would you guys know how it is, and but it was just something that I guess it came pretty easily to me. I just wanted to be outside all the time playing.
So John, so would you say basketball was your second best sport?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It was basketball. I mean, I'm I'm almost 7 feet tall, so and as I said, growing up in North Carolina, I couldn't really escape basketball, but I loved it.
So when did you really have to make the final decision that tennis was going to be the sport, and kind of what were the factors that you kind of considered in making that choice?
Yeah, it's a good question. I was about like 14 years old, and it came to a point where I could not uh, play both really because I was playing both very competitively, and I was either missing basketball practice for tennis matches or missing tennis tournaments for basketball practice or basketball tournaments. It was just very, very difficult. And so at about 14, I decided to go with tennis. I guess my thinking was my goal at that time was I wanted to get a college scholarship, and I knew I was going to be able to do that if I just kept on working hard and doing what I was doing. And so I went with tennis, and I actually had no idea I was going to be this tall. I think if someone would have told me that, I probably would have stuck with basketball, but I stuck with tennis, and I think it's worked out all right.
How tall were you at that age? Like when did you really hit that growth spurt?
Yes, so I really hit that growth spurt probably in between my junior and senior year of high school. So really late, like 17, 18 years old. And I grew in college, throughout college. I even grew a little bit after college, which was crazy. So I was a really late bloomer. In retrospect, I probably should have seen it coming. I was like tall and gangly, didn't have, a hair on my face till I was about 22 years old. So it was one of those things. And I have two older brothers. They're tall. They're the kind of normal tall, like 6'3" and 6'4". And then I just shot past both of them, and I just didn't look back.
So were you a Tar Heel fan or a Wolfpack fan growing up in North Carolina?
Yeah, growing up, I was a Wolfpack fan. Actually, in my early days, I was a Duke fan. I was real impressionable then, but then most of my family went to NC State, so I became a NC State fan, which was which made a lot of sense.
So, John, back us up to, when you said you made that decision around 14, probably going into high school. What was your parents' involvement in that decision? Did they want you to play everything, or were they kind of saying, John, it's kind of time to focus on this, or do they leave that entirely up to you?
I really, looking back, they left that up to me. And it seemed to be that my mom was the one back in the day who took me to most of my tennis tournaments, and my dad was the one who took me to most of the basketball tournaments. And I don't know, I kind of feel like my dad would have preferred if I stuck with basketball. My mom wanted me to play tennis, but they never ever said anything. They definitely left it up to me. Every decision um, that I had to make when it came to youth sports or whatever it was, they were always there to for me to ask them questions, of course, but they never steered me in one direction or the other. And for me, growing up, I had fantastic parents. I mean, it makes a huge difference if you want to have success at the junior level.
So, we got a lot of listeners who are multi-sport people and some that are just tennis people. And, for those who aren't tennis people, tennis is kind of a year-round sport. So talk to me about, was it year-round for you once you made that decision? Did you take time off?
Yeah, I mean, well, in junior tennis growing up, it if I remember correctly, it wasn't really that year round. I mean, there was in the summertime, it was very, very busy. It just seems like the seasons were very similar, the tennis and basketball seasons, and it was always big events going on concurrently. So the Pro Tour now is a lot more kind of, it starts in January and it ends in November. But in juniors, you can sort of kind of pick and choose when you wanted to play. I mean, but again, I stuck with tennis, but it wasn't like all consuming to me. I mean, a lot of players at my level at 14 or 15 years old would leave their hometown and go to all these tennis academies down in Florida or in California and sort of hone their skills that way. That's not something I didn't want to do. Of course, I practiced hard, but I wasn't working 4 or 5 hours a day like some of my contemporaries were at 14 or 15. Again, my goal was to go to college. It wasn't to play professional tennis, and I knew if I just stuck with what I was doing in North Carolina, I was going to be able to achieve that goal.
Was your, I'm curious, today your serve's such a unbelievable weapon, and you said you didn't really hit that growth spurt until you're a junior, senior. What was your game like early on?
My game was, I was good for sure, but I wasn't one of the top recruits in the country. It was one that I guess a lot of people could see that maybe I had potential, but I was never the number one junior in the country. I was probably number one in North Carolina, but there's 49 other states. There was a lot of good players, and my highest national ranking, I was probably top 10 in the country, which is really good. It's really good for the college level, but again, no one was ever thinking that I could do, really, really good things on the professional tour when I was about 16 or 17.